These stunning ocean shots that you're looking at right now are from a place called Esperance Bay in Western Australia. It looks like a paradise, turquoise waters, empty white sand beaches, picturesque postcard sunsets. But beneath that beauty, something slightly more unnerving has been bubbling away just under the surface.
Good evening. Perth parents are heading home without their daughter tonight after their Easter family holiday ended in a shark attack tragedy.
There's still no sign of a surfer attacked by a shark off the coast of Esperance in Western Australia.
A woman has reportedly been bitten by a shark off Western Australia's Wiley Beach in Esperance.
Search for a surfer attacked by a great white shark in Esperance has been called off.
A man has died after a shark attack in Western Australia.
Off the coast of Esperance.
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 In the last few years, this relatively quiet coastal town on Australia's southern coast has become the epicentre of a strange cluster of fatal shark attacks on surfers, swimmers and divers. 4 of Western Australia's last 5 fatal shark attacks have taken place off Esperance, a place where before 2017 there hadn't been a recorded fatal attack for over 120 years, forcing an impossible question out into the open. Have the white sharks here in Western Australia and Esperance gotten more aggressive than their counterparts in other locations around the world? I think there's no doubt looking at these clips here that some of these sharks are big. We're talking at least 4.5 to 5 meter long animals, but are they really more aggressive? Well, join me tonight as we cut through the headlines and the rumours, we'll break down some of these recent incidents, and we'll be delving deep into the science of white shark behaviour in this part of the world. Because what's going down in Esperance isn't just a small local mystery anymore. This has garnered global attention, and the residents of this coastal town are growing increasingly restless. If you think you already know this story, you probably don't, so stick around. Welcome back to another Shark Bites episode, everyone. Now, Australia, and specifically Western Australia, is no stranger to shark attacks. The state itself is home to all 3 of the traditionally most dangerous shark species in the world: bulls, tigers and whites. 3 shark species there that have very different niches in the marine environment, which I think is a testament to just how big Western Australia really is, because you can get the tigers and bulls who prefer those warmer tropical waters up here on the western and northern side, and then down here on the south and southwest coastline you'll get the white sharks who are preferring those slightly cooler temperate waters. There's no denying the numbers though, as a significant portion of Western Australia's shark-related fatalities are attributed to great white sharks. Since the year 2000, at least 21 people in the state have sadly lost their lives in shark attacks, with around 95% of those being most likely from white sharks. The waters around Perth, the state's capital, took a large brunt of these incidents from 2010 onwards, where at one point in time, alarmingly, they had 5 fatal shark attacks in less than 12 months. This dramatic increase compared to the previous decade, of course, drew the attention of residents, politicians and scientists, who for several years went back and forth trying to figure out the root cause, and went back and forth on mitigation measures like tracking compared to culling. Their tracking mitigation measures were pretty innovative for the time, leading to the creation of the Shark Monitoring Network and more recently the Shark Smart app. Over the last several years, around 220 white sharks of varying sizes have been tagged with acoustic transmitters, and about 40 big yellow acoustic receivers, like you're seeing on your screen now, have been strategically placed around metropolitan Perth and regional Western Australia. The idea here is that when the tagged sharks swim within 500 metres of one of these acoustic receivers, authorities are alerted, allowing them to rapidly close nearby beaches, which used to be via on-site alarm systems, but is now also via alerts on the Shark Smart app. And while it's not a foolproof method, it does give water users some extra details to be able to make informed decisions about whether they want to go in the water or not. Since the creation of the Shark Monitoring Network, the waters around metropolitan Perth, which has over half of the deployed acoustic receivers, have seen less fatal white shark attacks, save for a few incidents in 2016. On that occasion, 2 people were killed within 5 days, thought by authorities to be from the same shark. The majority of fatal incidents, though, in the state since then have happened just around the Cape from Perth in the Shire of Esperance. And looking at this map here, we can see that Esperance has just 4 receivers, all of which are nestled within Esperance Bay itself. The Shire of Esperance is obviously a lot bigger than just the bay, with over 300 miles of dramatic remote coastline, but it does make sense to place your receivers where you've got more people going into the water and where you've had previous incidents before. And so it's here within the confines of Esperance Bay where our story begins, because receivers and alert systems are only effective when a tagged shark swims near one. It can't detect the ones that haven't been tagged. Like I said, not foolproof. Back in 2017, 17-year-old Letitia Brower died after being bitten by a white shark while surfing with her dad at a popular surf break known as Kelp beds. She was bitten on the leg by the shark, and despite immediate first aid from her dad and an off-duty nurse, her injuries were too severe and she died on scene from blood loss. The incident led to widespread grief because of her young age, and it led to renewed calls from the public for improved ocean safety measures. It was the first ever fatality since records began for Esperance, with that database going back all the way to 1896, but it wasn't the the first attack to happen here. 3 years prior to Letitia's death, 23-year-old Sean Pollard lost both hands and suffered serious injuries to his legs, but managed to survive after he was bitten by a white shark while surfing the Kelp Beds break. These two incidents haven't been enough to deter surfers from the Kelp Beds surf break, and in 2020 another surfer was killed in a white shark attack surfing the very same spot. Andrew Sharp, known by his mates as Sharpie, was attacked by a white shark estimated by onlookers to be around 4.5 meters long. Sadly, he was taken underwater by the shark, and other than his damaged surfboard and some pieces of wetsuit, authorities were never able to retrieve his body. Earlier that year, in January 2020, scuba diver Gary Johnson was killed in a suspected white shark attack while diving with his wife just a few miles away from the Kelp Bed surf break at an island known as Coal Island. Authorities found his fin and a wetsuit sleeve, but sadly never found his body. Esperance didn't have a fatal shark attack for several years after 2020, albeit a young woman was bitten in 2022 whilst floating in a rubber ring off, once again, the Kelp Bed surf break. Although earlier this year in 2025, Esperance had its fourth fatality when New Zealander Stephen Payne was attacked and killed while surfing off Wharton Beach, about 50 miles east of Esperance Bay, with his body unable to be retrieved. So in nearly 8 years, Esperance has had 4 fatal shark attacks and 2 non-fatal attacks. 4 of them involved surfers, 3 of whom were surfing the Kelp Bed surf break. All of those incidents that I just mentioned to you took place between the months of October and April, and all took place around midday or just after midday. The time of day there, I'd say, is just a reflection of when most people are in the water, and it's comparable to global stats, which also see most attacks occurring around the same time. And then the months one, October through to April, is the Australian spring and summer times, slightly going into autumn. At this time of year, it's the summer break, you've got warmer temperatures, and Aussies will head to the beaches for their family holidays, enjoying a wide range of ocean activities. Now, before we go into some of the nitty-gritty factors, we've first got to understand why white sharks are even here in the first place. Australia is so big, it's actually got 2 different white shark populations. There's the eastern Australasian population that hangs out around here, and then you've got the southwestern population that hangs out here. Recent research earlier in 2025 has shown there to be some genetic mixing between these 2 populations, which has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, but most tracking data indicates that these 2 populations generally like to stick around their own areas. Of course, today then, we're looking mainly at this southwestern population of white sharks, which is estimated to average around 1,500 adults, about double the number of adults compared to the east coast. These southwest white sharks will make regular movements along the South Australian coastline. Some of them will stick on the continental shelf, and some of them will head off out into deeper oceanic waters. Some of them will be following the humpback whales around the southwestern Cape as they migrate up and down the western coast of Australia towards Perth, whereas some of them will move towards the Neptune Islands over here, where there are big breeding colonies of seals to feed on. So you can see there's a constant movement of white sharks along this coastline throughout the year, almost like a big old highway, and Esperance is slap bang in the middle of it. It sits adjacent to the Recherche Archipelago, which is this cluster of small islands, inlets and reefs, and the waters around here are rich, remote, and relatively undisturbed compared to other tourist hotspots in Western Australia. This marine richness supports an abundance of species like fur seals, Australian sea lions, fish, dolphins, and the occasional whale, all of which are on the menu for white sharks, whether you're a 2-meter juvenile feeding on fish, or a 3-meter plus adult feeding on seals, or just scavenging on a whale or dolphin carcass. There's a lot of natural prey species here, which makes Esperance and the archipelago a pretty good place to stop into as you're making your way along the Great Australian Bight, almost like a little pit stop. Some researchers have even described it as a haven for white sharks, who are likely using it as a migration corridor, feeding grounds, and even though we don't have the evidence for it yet, perhaps even a pupping ground. Now, with that abundance of potential prey, you're going to get a decent number of white sharks passing through Esperance. You'll get some of the smaller juveniles, sure, but you'll also get some very big adults. This video here was taken just off Kelp Beds Beach back in November 2025, and this is a big female white shark. The boat, which we can somewhat use as a frame of reference, is 27 feet long, just over 8 meters, so the shark in question here, I'd say, was probably around 5 meters, 16 feet. Maybe even a little bigger than that as well. For Esperance, it's not unusual to regularly see white sharks pushing over 4 meters in length, lots of whom have been filmed swimming around the kelp beds. Kelp beds here in Esperance, and around the world for that matter, are incredibly important hunting grounds for these sharks. Not only are they really biodiverse areas for prey species, they're also quite handy to hunt in, as the dense vegetation can be used as cover to ambush prey. Here's what some of the kelp bed habitat looks like in Esperance. This right here I think is golden kelp, and it's not matured yet, so it has more of a sprawling, dense dense coverage than a mature canopy kelp forest, which has those traditional long tree-like structures. In other parts of the world, we've had some amazing insights into how white sharks use kelp forests for hunting, like in this research paper by shark scientist Ollie Jewell, who attached camera tags to these sharks using kelp forests to hunt Cape fur seals in South Africa. In these unbelievable clips, you can see the white shark here turning quickly within the kelp fronds, squeezing through them really tightly and using them to its advantage to try and sneak up on some of the fur seals, which you can occasionally see crop up in the footage. I think one thing that's really evident here from this footage is just how active that individual shark is. It's not just calmly cruising through the kelp, it's making quick turns and swimming fast. It almost looks like it's in this heightened state of awareness. It's hunting. If we move back to our slightly different kelp bed footage here in Esperance though, you can see just how much marine life is congregating on these kelp beds. There's tons of fish, some short-tailed stingrays there. Yeah, that's the species that killed Steve Irwin. But you also get a good idea of how dense the coverage of kelp is. There's plenty of deeper channels where if you were a predator, you could stick low and ambush your prey from below. So of course, these Esperance Bay kelp beds are perfect habitat for hunting white sharks. Watching these crazy shots captured by videographer Dave Riggs, I think it's clear again just how worked up lots of these white sharks are, continually coming back time and time again to have a pop at this underwater camera that's been lowered down from the surface. It's a very active, heightened state that we're seeing them in. The tenacity and intensity at which some of these sharks are going for this GoPro tells you that when the sharks are hanging around these kelp beds, they've likely got one thing on their mind, and that's food, or investigating objects that they think might be food. Even that big female that we compared to the size of the boat earlier, here you can see her swimming off into the kelp and she just disappears. Big thanks to Dave for letting me use that footage, by the way. I'll post a link to his channel in the description below so you can go and check him out. Now, when we've done some of these shark attack hotspot analysis videos before on the channel, I'm sure that lots of you will have heard me harping on about topography. For any new viewers to the channel, topography is the arrangement of the natural physical features in the environment. For example, you could have flat sandbanks for miles, or small but dense seagrass meadows, or shallow coral reefs that then go into steep drop-offs to deep water. And often these topographical features can influence the movements or the behavior of sharks, which in turn can lead to them encountering humans more often. If we look at the coastline of Esperance, it's largely made up of these big granite headlands with lots of rocky outcrops and steep-sided islands weathered by ocean erosion. That's the Recherche archipelago that we were talking about earlier. But all these rocky structures, both out in the little islands across the archipelago and along the actual coastline, have those features below the water as well. Typically around those headlands, you'll have solid bedrock or very big stable boulders that are the perfect habitat for the holdfasts or roots of kelp to fasten to. Kelp needs those hard rocky structures to anchor themselves in where they can start growing. As well as this, because of how currents and waves interact with these headlands, you get these upwelling zones which brings in cooler, nutrient-rich water up from the depths to the surface, and those nutrients are happily received by the kelp beds. So with nutrient-rich water and perfect rocky substrate, the kelp beds here in Esperance around the headlands can thrive, and that's exactly what you can see from aerial satellite shots. Around almost every headland across this Esperance coastline, you've got these dense patches of kelp forest or kelp beds. It's very visible. Each of these dark blue-black patches are kelp. We can see it from the satellite imagery, but we can also see it from aerial drone shots as well. Across Esperance Bay, all these headlands have got thick kelp forest coverage, ideal hunting habitat for white sharks. So these headlands, because of their topography and biology, are predisposed to be areas that are some of the best hunting grounds for sharks. And unfortunately, they're also highly sought after by surfers. Because of the unique shape of headlands, they cause incoming swells to bend and focus their energy to create a consistent point break. They'll also often provide shelter from wind, creating smoother or cleaner surfing conditions. A very alluring prospect if you're trying to catch the best wave. Here's a shot from Wiley Bay Rock Beach. That's the kelp bed surf break right there, where both Letitia Brower and Andrew Sharp lost their lives. Here's Wharton Beach, where Stephen Payne lost his life in early 2025. Big, dense patches of kelp forest habitat. These headlands, known to be popular surf and swim spots, are going to draw in white sharks. They'll draw in the smaller ones, but they'll also draw in the big ones as well. And I don't think it's necessarily a case of these sharks being more aggressive here. They're just entering a habitat in which they're hardwired to associate with hunting. Pair that with warmer summer waters, which not only increases the number of people in the ocean, but it also increases a shark's metabolism, so that shark has to eat more food to sustain itself. When you get a big 4 to 5 meter white shark who's heading into an area to hunt because it's warmer so it's more hungry, even something like an exploratory bite can almost certainly end your life. And in some cases, because of that predatory opportunism in these sharks, who will eat what they can when they have to survive, you'll also get situations like Andrew Sharp and Stephen Payne, who were likely consumed. I think the incidents where the body was never recovered has somewhat led to the perception that the sharks here are more aggressive, but there's not really any evidence to support that. It's just all of those conditions that we've spoken about there, paired with a higher number of big adult white sharks that create a perfect storm for a fatal shark attack. I'm not quite sure what the Western Australian government's going to do here, but given their previous record, I imagine it'll be more mitigation measures with tags and those acoustic receivers. They've definitely got to have a few more of those receivers placed along Esperance's coastline if they want it to work, that's for sure. I should also point out here that although the incidents we've spoken about today are undoubtedly tragic, they're still the rarity, not the norm. As of the time of making this video, there was one fatal shark attack in Western Australia between June 2024 and June 2025, and by comparison, 49 people drowned in that same time frame. What do you guys recommend? Would more receivers work here in Esperance? Should they be using drones a bit more? I mean, with the clear waters, you've got a half decent chance of spotting a 3 to 4 meter shark if it comes out those kelp beds, maybe even AI drones, I don't know. I think that's what they're planning on doing across in New South Wales, and so the question remains, should they be doing it more here in Esperance? I'm not sure, but I definitely want to hear all your thoughts in the comments. Before you all dash off though, if you enjoyed today's shark attack analysis, then you might quite enjoy learning about another stretch of coastline that was notorious for its shark attacks in this video here. In it, I talked to you about Recife in Brazil and the events that led to a huge uptick in the number of attacks that were happening there. Go on, I'll see you there.